Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing what some of the better value bets in college basketball might be for November 23rd, 2016. I got a list of about 10 games that I'm going to be discussing in this video, and if you're looking for more pick content beyond just what I talk about in this particular video, you can head over to stumpthespread.com, and we have both free and premium pick articles over there that you can read and kind of get our take on the matchups and our reasoning behind why one team has maybe a little bit better value against the spread than their opponent. So if you're on desktop, you can click this Stump the Spread logo right here and it'll take you right over there. And I'll also link it in the description. And also, if you could hit the subscribe button, that really helps me out and it'll give you notifications of when I release these videos. I'm planning on continuing to release these college basketball matchup videos on a daily basis. And this week's college football video, I'm planning on releasing probably sometime tomorrow afternoon for Week 13's action. Alright, so the first game I'm going to be talking about in this video is going to be Michigan versus South Carolina. Michigan has really impressed so far this year. This is a veteran group that might not necessarily have the most athletic team by any means, but their veteran leadership and quality head coaching is really showing quite nicely. And Michigan, they've picked up recent blowout resume wins against opponents like SMU and Marquette on a neutral court. And then the South Carolina squad, everyone remembers last year that they were the last undefeated team in the regular season. They went on to not have the ideal kind of results in the SEC. And then they came up just short of making the NCAA tournament. So South Carolina has beefed up their non-conference slate a bit this year to try to counteract what they ran into last year, where even though they won all of their non-conference games, they weren't going against the greatest competition, so they'll invite in Michigan to this one. The Wolverines have been looking really impressive as of late, and we do like Michigan to come through here on the road, covering this 3.5-point spread. Next game I want to talk about is College of Charleston against Villanova. Charleston just hosted a invite recently, and they did not have the most success in that particular invite. This is a Charleston squad that's expected to compete more towards the top of their conference this season, given the amount of returning starters they have on their team. But given what we've seen out of the College of Charleston so far this year, I'm kind of worried about them on the offensive side of the ball, even though their defense is pretty strong, and they do have, or they're going to have, what's going to be a pretty strong home court advantage come conference play. But what we've seen out of this offense thus far is not the most intriguing thing. And then you have Villanova here coming off the national championship. This is a team that returns a lot of talent. It'd be kind of a surprise if Villanova wasn't able to make another run to the Final Four this year. It's a very unselfish team that has a lot of strong veteran leadership. Villanova is head and shoulders ahead of Charleston in terms of their offensive output, and I would even take Villanova's defense overall against the Cougars. And getting this game as the home court advantage in this one, we do like Villanova to win this one rather convincingly as they go on to cover this spread. Alright, next game I want to talk about is Missouri State against DePaul. Missouri State is a team that can compete right at the upper tier of the Missouri Valley Conference this year. Paul Lusk is finally starting to find his footing at Missouri State. For those that don't remember, Conzo Martin was the head coach over there at Missouri State about 4 or so years ago. Actually, it might even be a little longer than that, maybe 5 or so. But anyways, he went off to Tennessee, and then Paul Lusk took over for him at Missouri State. And even though he did have some early success, he hasn't really been having all that much success at Missouri State over the last few seasons. But this is finally a roster that's extremely deep, and actually it could become an issue in getting all of his guys playing time, considering how deep this particular roster is. But Missouri State's looked really strong out of the gate, going against a pretty manageable schedule thus far. They head here on the road against DePaul, who's picked to be in the basement of the Big East again this season. DePaul loses some of their key offensive contributors from last year's squad, and this is just a Blue Demon squad that's going to be having some difficulties in the highly competitive Big East conference this year. So we really like what we're seeing out of Missouri State, and even though this group hasn't gone on the road yet, we do still feel confident siding with the Bears here to push for this upset. And honestly, if DePaul was able to pick up this one, that'd be more of a surprise to us than if Missouri State was able to come through. Alright, next game I want to talk about is Wichita State against LSU. Wichita State loses some of their top players from last year's tournament team, but the Shockers have reloaded and looked really impressive so far early on this year. This is a Wichita State squad that's the overwhelming favorites to win the Missouri Valley regular season title again this year. The Shockers have great head coaching, and they bring back enough veteran pieces along with some transfers to kind of reload. And then you have LSU, who was one of the biggest disappointments in college basketball last year. They lose some of their biggest contributors as well. Blankeney has gotten off to a really nice start, and that's who LSU is going to be leaning on this year. But LSU has been picked to finish in the bottom tier of the SEC this season. We don't expect a lot of great things from LSU this year, but this is going to be a pretty good measuring stick game from them going against a really solid Wichita State squad. But we do like the Shockers to come through here, giving the 10.5 points as the better bet. VCU and Baylor. This is a VCU squad that's moving on from the Shaka Smart era. Virginia Commonwealth looked strong last year and having quite a bit of success. This group returns some starters, but also reloads to a roster that should compete near the upper tier of the A10 and push for another spot in the NCAA tournament this season. And then Baylor, another team that they lost their top 2 contributors from last year's squad. This is a Baylor team that returns enough talent and brings in some guys that can kind of keep this group relevant in the Big 12, but making a run for an at-large bid could be a little tough for this Baylor squad. We did see them upend Oregon earlier in the year at home, but that was an Oregon squad that wasn't quite running at full speed yet. So we're just kind of in a wait-and-see with this Baylor squad. They do look pretty good on the defensive side of the ball, but we are a little worried about their offensive consistency. So in this particular matchup, we do like VCU getting the points here as the better bet. St. John's and Michigan State. This is a St. John's squad that did not look great under head coach Mullins last season, and this group doesn't really bring back all of that many great pieces to a team that's probably going to be finishing in the bottom tier of the Big East again this year. St. John's is coming off a competitive defeat on the road against Minnesota in what was a pretty decent result for them, but things get a little tougher for them in this matchup. Michigan State taking some punches early on this year, losing to Arizona and then Kentucky, and then in their last outing, Michigan State had a really tough time at home getting past Florida Gulf Coast. Not what we expected out of this Michigan State squad this year, but I'm sure head coach Tom Izzo isn't all that worried. In fact, there's been a number of cases over the last 15 years or so where Michigan State's gotten off to slow starts and then they kind of get things together as the season goes on, and especially that can be the case this year given all the freshman talent that's being infused into this roster. I expect Michigan State to get better as the season goes along, and with this spread shrinking from -8 to -6.5, we do think the Spartans have the better betting value here, and we're going to be buying low on Michigan State in this particular matchup against a St. John squad that we still don't have all that much confidence in. So the spread hasn't come out yet for this Oregon versus Connecticut matchup. Just off the top of my head, if I had to guess, I would say that Oregon's probably going to be coming in here as maybe about a 5-point favorite or so. We're really low on this Connecticut squad based on what we've seen out of them this season. Connecticut's really been struggling in every matchup, and they even had a tough time getting past Chaminade yesterday. And then Oregon also not performing up to their preseason expectations, but we do think that this Oregon squad is built a little bit better than this Connecticut squad and more able to get out of their funk that they're in. Oregon is coming off an overtime win against Tennessee in a game that they probably should have been able to win a little bit more convincingly. This Oregon offense hasn't been able to hit their stride yet, but Dylan Brooks is kind of working his way back into the lineup for them. We do like Oregon to pull through here and get past Connecticut as they go on to win and probably cover the spread as a favorite, even though this spread hasn't come out quite yet. All right, Elon against Illinois Chicago. I just have about 3 more games I want to talk about, and the last 2 aren't even on this particular list because I think it's because they're probably very late into the night on tomorrow or for tomorrow's action, so maybe that's why they're not listed in this particular area. But first, to touch on Elon versus Illinois Chicago, we really like the pieces Illinois Chicago brings in this year. This was one of the worst teams in D1 basketball last year, but this is actually a pretty intriguing roster of players that should be able to work their way up rather significantly both in their conference and in the RPI from where they were a year ago. Elon has looked okay out of the gate so far, and you can see that people have been liking what they've been seeing from the Phoenix with the spread getting pushed up to 7 points. But we do think that Illinois Chicago can keep things close here and even push for the upset as they go on to cover the 7-point spread. Alright, and so the first game I want to talk about that's not listed here is Valparaiso versus BYU. This is a really intriguing matchup between two, I don't even know if you can call BYU a mid-major, but they play in a mid-major conference, and as well as Valparaiso. These are two teams that are going to be trying to push their way into the NCAA tournament this year after both teams had really strong campaigns a year ago, but came up just short of making the NCAA tournament. Valparaiso's looked decent so far this year, but not overly impressive. And then you have a BYU team that lost some key contributors from last year's squad, but this team returns a lot of talent, and we're really high on this BYU squad just in terms of what they're able to do down low with their front court. They have one of the better front courts among all the mid-majors, and they should really be able to kind of dominate the paint in that particular matchup against the Crusaders. We do like BYU to come through in that particular matchup as they go on to win and cover the spread against Valparaiso. And then the last game I want to talk about that's really late, especially if you're on the East Coast. I think it starts at 1:30 a.m. It's going to be Oakland versus Nevada. Oakland loses Kay Felder from last year. He was one of the leading scorers in the nation, but Oakland does bring in a lot of transfer talent to a Golden Grizzly squad that should be able to compete right up at the top of the horizon along with Valparaiso and kind of give them a push at the top of the conference there. Oakland's looked really strong so far this year, but this is going to be a step up in competition for them, going against a Nevada squad that's supposed to compete near the top of the Mountain West Conference this year. Nevada has looked really strong since their opening blowout loss on the road against a really good St. Mary's squad. Since going back home onto their home court, Nevada has really looked pretty strong, living up to their preseason hype. This is a Nevada squad that brings in Missouri State transfer Marcus Marshall, who's made an instant impact leading the team in scoring. We just really like the makeup of this Nevada squad, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to put together a strong enough non-conference resume to where if they perform well enough in the Mountain West Conference, they're able to maybe garner an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament, but that's yet to be seen. We do think that Oakland can keep things somewhat respectable in this one, but we do like Nevada to come through and cover the spread in that particular matchup. So that's the list of games that I wanted to talk about for today's action for November 23rd, 2016. Again, if you're looking for some matchup articles, not just in college basketball, but also college football, the NBA, the NFL, and NHL, you can head over to stumpthespread.com. We have daily free picks there, as well as quite a bit of premium content that you can get your hands on. You can get there by clicking this logo right here if you're on desktop, and I'll also be linking it in the description. And again, if you can, it really helps me out. It's really greatly appreciated if you can click the thumbs up or the subscribe button. But if not, I appreciate you watching this video up to this point, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Thanks, guys. I'll see you then. Bye.